Let's dive into Ephesians chapter 2. Ephesians chapter 2. And last week we did Ephesians chapter 1. And kind of like how we were chatting about earlier about Ephesians. Remember, this is around 62 AD. So remember, Romans was 57. So Paul is now, think of it, we studied Romans, and it took us like a year and a half roughly to go through Romans. And
Yeah.
if you think of Paul, he's anticipating writing to this or building this church Rome up, and obviously going to Spain after. In reality, he has to go to Jerusalem, hand off the offering to the Jewish Christians from the Gentile believers, and head back to go to Spain. But instead, he finds himself in Rome, but not at the church, but in prison. And as he's in prison, he starts to write these final letters, one of them being Ephesians. Okay, and he writes to the church of Ephesus, which we know is um, an area in Macedon. And if you're wondering about the background of Paul in prison, just read or just look at Acts chapter 19, and it's the background behind essentially how he's there in Ephesus. And then we talked about chapter 1, and in chapter 1, Paul, he opens up with the first two verses with a greeting, and that's how we know as far as the authorship. But from verse 3 all the way to 14, it is literally the longest sentence in the Bible, or I think roughly around 257 words without a sentence. Okay, you don't see that in your English, but it's like that in the Greek, where Paul will essentially talk about the spiritual blessings in Christ, but it's really through the triune God, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, that was working for our salvation. And then Paul gives a thanksgiving and prayer from verse 17 to 22. So now we're in chapter 2, and I intended to do the whole chapter, but due to time, we're probably going to have to do a couple of verses, which is fine. Um, but let's go to Romans chapter 2. Oh, sorry, Romans. I did that last week. Ephesians chapter 2. And if I could have someone read verses 1 to 3 out loud. Ephesians chapter 2, verses 1 to 3.
And you were dead in your trespasses and sins, in which you once walked, following the course of this world, following the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that is now at work in the sons of disobedience, among whom we all once lived in the passions of our flesh, carrying out the desires of the body and mind, and were by nature children of wrath like the rest of mankind.
All right. Well, Paul now shifts here, speaking to Gentiles, those who were non-believers at one point, and he says this in verse 1, and you were dead in your trespasses and sin in which you once, past tense, walked, following the course of this world. Stop there. Sorry, go back to verse 1. You were dead in your trespasses and sins. Okay, verse 1. You were dead in your trespasses and sins. Paul uses the word nekros as far as corpse, and he uses it to describe our spiritual condition. Okay, we know it is possible to be physically alive, but to be spiritually dead or spiritually lifeless. And essentially, this is the concept of what Paul is talking about as far as the spiritually dead. Okay, think of it. If you think of the illustration as far as a dead corpse, what is Paul trying to say spiritually? Are we dead? Meaning that the soul is incapable of choosing and having faith in Christ because what? It's dead, right? Or is Paul saying that people in their current spiritual condition still can choose Christ? Okay, and if that's the case, then what's the point of this illustration? Okay, so Billy Graham, famous evangelical minister or evangelist, says a life without God, no matter how strong or smart, is a living death. People can be alive physically, yet dead spiritually. Okay, so there's a theological debate that has been going on for a couple hundred years as far as this verse right here, or the concept, and as far as the illustration. And that is, how dead are we spiritually? Okay, so there are those that take this illustration of corpse, of being dead, and we'll say it's literal as far as our soul's condition. Our soul is literally dead as far as it choosing life, it choosing God. As a result, humans will not choose Christ on their own because they are dead. This concept or this theology is known or was taught by John Calvin. Okay, so essentially, those who are more Reformed, those who are more Calvinistic in their theology, emphasize true deadness of sin. It's called total depravity. And it's taken from a verse such as this. But when I say total depravity, essentially, how dead is dead? Okay? If you have a dead corpse in front of you, okay, and you give that dead corpse, say, some magic potion, and you tell the dead corpse, hey, let's give it a name. This dead corpse's name is someone name. Give a name. Give a name. George. Hey, George. I know you're dead, but I have this potion. I'm going to open it for you. I'm going to leave it right beside your head. That's dead. And if George drinks this potion, there is 100% certainty that George will be alive. Not 99, 100% certainty that if George drinks this magic potion, he will be alive. Okay? But the thing is this. George has to drink the potion. What's George going to do?
Later. He's dead.
He's dead. Okay? So, by this illustration, someone would need to take this potion, open it up, and put it in George's mouth in order for him to be 100% healed. Right? But the problem is, George can't. Okay? And this goes, and that illustration is essentially the way Calvinist views a person in the gospel. A person cannot, is because a person is by nature dead, corpse. Okay? So essentially, humanity, apart from some external force, external movement, such as a person outside of George putting the cup and giving it to him, will be dead spiritually. So if God does not intervene on humanity, all humans will stay in our spiritual deadness and as a result not choose Christ. This is essentially Calvinism, total depravity. It emphasizes man's spiritual deadness. We're done. Okay? Contrast to that is another view called Arminianism. Most people, I would say, in Christianity unknowingly would believe this. But essentially it is, we're dead, but we're not taking this illustration as far as dead corpse to the full extent. We are dead in our disordered state, but humans still have autonomy and still have the choice to choose Christ. Okay, so I guess a famous an illustration to give an illustration of the contrasting points, have you guys seen The Princess Bride?
Yeah.
Do you remember Miracle Max? Miracle Max? Bill Christie, Billy Crystal, I think, plays him, but he looks like Doc Brown but essentially
yeah,
he's
yeah.
the guy that heals him. Hominick, 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 Hominick. But that's his wife. But Billy Crystal, Miracle Max, is has Wesley in front of him. Oh, Wesley, right in front of him, and he is. Not conscious, he is not aware, and what happens is that Miracle Max has this body in front of him, and remember the Spaniard comes to him and he asks him a question, and then Miracle Max says, "There's a big difference between mostly dead and all dead. Mostly dead means he's what? He's still alive. All dead means you can go and touch his pockets," right? Meaning that you can rob him. But there's a big difference between what? Mostly dead and all dead. Essentially, Calvinism, with that illustration, if you want to know what happened, they got this medicine filled with chocolates all around, and anyways, they get the tube and they put it in his mouth, and he's healed, and all that. Anyways, go see that film if you have not. It's a beautiful film, Princess Bride. But mostly dead or all dead. If you're mostly dead, what? You're still alive. I guess that'd be the more Armenian position in this illustration, where you're dead, but you still have a sense of will to choose or not to choose. I guess the position is your desires are naturally drawn away from God, and we'll get into this when we talk about the flesh. Or most or all dead, which would be the Calvinist position, which mean that Wesley cannot do anything. He's dead. Okay, so essentially, this is the different views as far as our fallen state is crucial because it has relevancy to our salvation as far as how we become saved, and this goes into our conversation that we had before about politics, geopolitics. Politics has a big ramifications as far as human nature's fallen state. So I think one of the errors or a blind spot that we have as Christians is I don't think we examine this topic enough. And what I mean is, I can come up to a person and talk to them about God, Christ, and that's fine. But why? I need to essentially, when I bring up God, I'm bringing the standard of perfection, the being of perfection. But I'm talking to a what? A perfect being? A fallen being? What? Who am I talking to? A human. What kind of condition does a human have? Right? Depending on your view as far as fallenness, will show your view about soteriology or salvation or politics. And the reason the two of them are very linked together: anthropology, politics. Anthropology, ethics, politics. All of them are in order. If I am in a fallen state, if I'm dead in sin, then guess what? I need a savior to save me from my deadness. It cannot be me. It needs to be someone else. Salvation. What does it look like practically here on this earth? Well, if I'm a fallen being, fallen beings or dead beings don't produce the best outcome practically on this earth, right? Well, that's why there's something called the Ten Commandments, is to restrain us from us. So as a result, because we're in a fallen state, I need good governance upon me and everyone else around me. This is what we call politics. Politics gives humans order, but it's based upon their condition. If we're all perfect beings and we don't make mistakes, then I don't need someone above me. I don't need someone telling me to go at a certain speed limit because I'm perfect morally. But if I'm not, then guess what? Rules come in, laws come in, right? Governance come in. What? To set order. If humans are fallen, guess what happens practically? Disorder. And because disorder happens, there needs to be a set rule as far as how we conduct ourselves and accountability. Hence, politics. That's why we have military. That's why we have police. That's why we have laws to govern who? What? People. People that are what? Fallen. You see? It's been proven. I don't know if you knew this, but those who are more conservative, and when I say conservative, don't think American republicanism. Okay? Conservatism goes all the way back thousands of years ago, which means to preserve a rule that is beneficial to humanity. That's the essence of conservatism, to conserve, to preserve that which was productive to humanity. Okay? Those who are more conservative tend to be more Christian. The reason why is because they have a view that man is fallen. Where do you get that view? The Bible. Because man is fallen, we therefore need rules, principles to keep us in check. That's my anthropology, leading to ethics, leading to politics. But if my anthropology says, you know what? All people are loving. All people are kind. People are not naturally violent. We're all peaceful. Okay, fine. If that's your view of anthropology, how will your politics be? Freedom! Right? How will your politics be? Not a lot of rules, not a lot of regulations, not a lot of accountability. Because you don't need it if man is good and naturally autonomous. You see? So you see how people who are typically, have a low view of anthropology tend to be more liberal, and those with a more disordered view of anthropology tend to be more conservative. The flow, there's a logical flow. Do you see that? So again, it really comes down to, if you want to know this discussion about migration, about what's going on in the world, first, before you establish rules, regulation, who's president, who's monarch, all that, what's your view of man? Is man good? Right? There was this couple in America, liberal, they said, you know what? All these conservatives bash on these Muslims in the Middle East. I'm going to prove to them that they're very nice people. They went there trying to travel the world, showing that they're nice people and kind, and guess what? Killed. Okay? Your view of anthropology leads to your view of ethics, therefore leads to your view of politics, in that logical order. This was discussed 2,400 years ago. Okay? Aristotle, the Nicomachean Ethics, right? And he wrote on democracy. So again, these ideas, it's not coming from me, it's coming from philosophy that's been built upon for the last 2,000 years. Okay? And whatever truth by definition is efficacious. God's truth is by definition efficacious. What I mean by that is if it's true, if God says it's true, guess what? It's happening in the real world. It is happening in the real world. When someone tells you something and the assumption is that it's true, time will tell if that true or that statement, that proposition is true or not. You'll know as it works in the real world. Bottom line. Okay? Any questions? I know we just talked about one verse.
Well, it's just interesting because, I mean, the majority of people in the world don't know, how politics flows from the living God and order in society. They're creating order out of disorder. not that it saves, but it just brings order to the chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And then, what you had said a while back in Romans, when we were talking about Romans 14 and how God has instated the government to punish the evildoer, and it's by his divine design. You also said Isaiah 33:22, where we get the balance of powers. In America, the legislature, the judicial branch, and the executive branch. For the Lord is our judge. The Lord is our lawgiver. The Lord is our king. He will save us.
Hi, Bonnie. Hi, Bonnie.
Hi.
We miss you.
Hi, I went to sleep again.
Oh, it's okay.
I woke up and I
Sorry.
Sorry about that.
No worries. No worries.
Yeah.
We're on Ephesians chapter 2. We're on the first verse right now.
Good.
Yeah. So.
Now I your camera, right?
Yeah, we were just talking about, Paul talks about nekros, or corpse, deadness of sin, and we're just talking about human nature, the condition of humanity, and from the condition of humanity, one's view, so what you believe about humanity, that's anthropology, and whatever view people typically have about anthropology, their politics flows from it. Will it be left, right, central, whatever it is, and it's typically that way, right? And people unknowingly, people just jump to conclusion and vote politics. We're like, no, 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 no. There's order to this thing. It makes sense logically. Like the two most things that are controversial, and it's really because of secularism. Secularism has done that to us. Like politics and religion should be talked about daily. Like it's what gives us ethics and order and civility. But yeah, it's been at the end of the day, this is a study of humanity. That what it's about. Even religion. Religion implies ethics, right? There's worldviews to this thing. So, yeah. Kevin, you had a train of thought.
Well, basically, it's it's kind of like, news media and everything. It's supposed to be the fourth, branch of the government or the watchdog, but it's like every time you kind of watch it's like a dumbing down, and it kind of takes advantage of people. But when you speak on it from a godly perspective, in knowing what God has done with his government, he instituted all this, like we talked about in Romans 14, to punish the evildoer, to bring order to society. And then it's not only in Romans, but it's in Isaiah, what we had talked about, or what you had mentioned, Isaiah 33:22, and how that's how the U.S. government got, the three branches of government, where the Lord is our lawgiver, he's our judge, and he's our king, and he's the one who will save us. But it's like all this stuff flows from the living God. It doesn't flow from man. And that's the thing that people, they think everything is just like, oh, it's here and we created it, and, the founding fathers and all this stuff. But it's like all, if it was communicated properly, it's like, most people would understand, I think, more than they do now. But it's like the education system, like, teaches people wrong. It's like things you see on TV, it's like communicated wrong, because the basis of it is in God. And so it's all crazy.
Yeah.
It's all like off-centered, so it's like, if you go back to the text and what God says in his living word, then it's like it all makes sense.
Yeah. Yep. So, but does that make sense? Does that make sense, guys? Like as far as the logical flow, as far as how one views humanity. But it's. I think this is. I think, in my opinion, this discussion about anthropology needs to be discussed on a mainstream level again. Um,
Well,
yeah,
well, Paul was a Jew. Okay, I'm going to go to the Christian thing. He's trying to teach the Gentiles something, isn't he? Aren't we talking about?
absolutely.
He's trying to
Yeah, yeah,
teach faith, grace. I mean, this by grace, you're going to be forgiven. Yeah, you're dead. You're you got to be born again. And whoever he told it, he said, "What? I can't come from my mother's womb again."
yeah. John 3. Yeah, yeah. You're right. Yeah. So
I mean,
there's
he's out there. 2,000 years ago, everyone thought he was. He gets stoned. He gets thrown out of cities. He's threatened, and he's trying to teach something. Now we take it for granted. But I feel that this Paul's quest to bring the Gentiles, the Jewish,
yeah,
the Old Testament,
yeah.
whatever, and bring it into the New Testament. The new.
Yeah.
I mean, you're very smart. Your university, you've gone here and there and everywhere, but by grace through faith. I
Yeah.
mean, it's real simple. Either you're a Christian or you're not,
That's it.
or you're taking the baby steps. He says not everybody can be a Christian. That you got to take baby steps because he has spies. He has people trying to upset his churches. The Galatians. I don't know.
Yeah.
He's battling. He's battling. Anyway.
No, you're
That's
right.
my view.
That's a beautiful view. It's right. It's
I don't know.
no, it's we I'm kind of going off topic here, but like we need to reclaim ourselves. And when I say reclaim, I mean the church. I mean America. I mean like what is going on? And when I say reclaim, like this is a kingdom we're talking about, and we're called to build that. Um, I look around, and it's it's I know I understand California is a certain state. So is Toronto. So is Canada. Probably, I'll say even worse as far as what we're dealing with here is the migration and whatnot. Um, but regardless, okay, fine. It's politics. Uh, Back to when I was praying about. Think of Saint Augustine. He was a church father in the fourth century, and Rome. It fell in 476, the western part. Okay, not the east, the west. And he was alive around that time frame, and he wrote the book, the City of God. And essentially, um, the Visigoths came in, barbarism, all that stuff, disorder. It's very similar to what's happening now, as far as the West, and instead of we can go to war, but at the same time we can also convert these people here too. You know what I mean? And like the mindset of going around and convert in evangelism or conversion, and I think that's the mindset a lot of people should have now, right? And really get into apologetics, get into understanding what other people believe, what other worldviews, what other cultures believe in, because again, it runs deep into people's mindsets, right? So you're right. As far as by grace through faith, right? But who are we talking to, right? By grace through faith implies you need help, but implies that there's an issue there. And this is what we talked about as far as the brokenness of human anthropology. Okay. Any other questions, guys? No? Okay, that was verse 1. That was 30 minutes. So let's do verse 2. All right. Verse 2. says, in which you once walked following the course of this world. Okay, stop right there. So, Paul, in the next two verses, is going to talk about the three powers that enslave us. Okay, the three powers that enslave us. And that is biblically. It's a New Testament theme. There are external forces, powers that influence us against God. That is the world, the devil, and the flesh. The world, the devil, and the flesh. Here, what does he say? The world. First part of in which you once walked following what? The course of the world. Okay, so the world, here in verse 2, is the value system of our fallen humanity. Deadness of sin. A shared commonality of deadness. Shaped by sin and opposed to God. Okay, so cosmos, which is the Greek for world, is used negatively here by Paul. Okay, the course of this age, he says, the present evil age. In Galatians 1:4, Paul talks about. Okay, so essentially, the world, if you want to think of it, is, because a lot of times we like to use words in, Christianese circles. Sometimes we don't define it. But the world here is essentially, think of humanity's fallen state. Okay, humanity's fallen state, the ideas that's produced, the incentives, the goals that are against God. We are, in our deadness, people that naturally oppose God, created to be in relationship with God. Okay, that is broken. Now our nature is to do things that oppose God. You take 8 billion people that have those hearts, bad ideas come about. Okay? These things that we're talking on, neutral. Smartphones, computers, photos, they're neutral things. Okay? They're amoral, okay? Neither good nor bad, they're there. You put the human heart, when it comes to these neutral things, such as objects, guess what happens? Goodness can come out of it, but a lot of badness, because why? Our natural state. Okay? Ideas come. New inventions come about. Okay? Say we create platforms. Back in the day, MTV. When I say back in the day, I mean corporate news or like television. Right? And it's a means that we can communicate. We learn new ideas. But when these ideas are opposed to God, that's the world. Okay? So we're seeing just anything that is in opposition in a corporate sense when it comes to God. Against God. This is the biblical definition of what the world is. Okay? So biblically, we have to watch out for the equivocation fallacy. And I always talk about the equivocation fallacy using two different words. Two of the same word, but with multiple definitions. So the word world, cosmos, is used throughout the scriptures, but it's used in a good way. John 3:16, for God so loved the world. Okay, so it's good, but that's in reference to, say, all of humanity, the 8 billion people, the globe. Depends on the context. Could be all believers. The world, all believers, but here Paul speaks about it negatively. Okay, can someone read 1 John 2, 15 to 16 out loud? 1 John 2, 15 to 16. First John 2.
And in one body to reconcile both of them to God through the cross, by which he put to death their hostility. He came and preached peace to you who were far away, and peace to those who were near. For through him we both have access to the Father by one Spirit.
That's 1 John. 1 John.
Is that the right one?
Yeah, 1 John 2.
Oh, I thought he said Ephesians.
Oh, it's okay. It's
Sorry,
okay.
I read the wrong one.
No, it's okay. 1
Okay.
John 2, 15 to 16.
Go ahead, I don't have it.
Do not love the world nor the things of the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh and the lust of the eyes and the boastful pride of life is not from the Father, but is from the world.
All right. The system. The system where the fallen state joins together to unite against God. Knowingly or unknowingly. Okay? Knowingly or unknowingly. Think of a biblical illustration that you could think of the world, or like an instance where people said, let's get together and fight God. Knowingly or unknowingly?
Probably a little of both, maybe.
Yeah? But what comes to mind for me is Genesis 11, Tower of Babel. Right? It was a knowing, an awareness. They were aware that that they were going up against God, right? But what did they do? They united. They united to be in opposition towards God, and I think you can see the same thing today, where people do unite. There are ideas that are anti-Christ, that are anti-God, but it's come through unification. You know, I'm being honest with you guys, and I say this with a heart that is not angry or condemning, but in honesty, I look at the world. When I see some of these like pride marches, you know, the pride marches, these are very anti-God, like visuals that I see, right? As far as what the ethics that's involved, the messaging that's there, they publicly mock Christ, like. If they were to have media, if they were to have ideas for all of us to believe, to me that's the world. It's opposed to God, but in a corporate sense. Nature, corporate, world. Okay? And you're either born in those environments, which all of us are, because of our condition, or we're not. And that's why Europe was very proud of their Christendom culture for more than 1,000 years. Okay, so the world. Okay, look at the second part of verse 2. He says, following the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that is now at work in the sons of disobedience. So Paul talks about the world. Okay, he talks about the world system. Then he talks about the devil. Okay, so we have the world, our external enemy. We have the devil, our spiritual enemy. Okay, Satan, or the devil, the ruler of the kingdom of darkness, who actively opposes God and deceives humanity to not believe in him. So think of, so we know that Satan and his origins are starting. Essentially, God creates an angelic being, angelic beings, and then there was one being that we know by the name of Lucifer that had a lot of power, that was tempted from within, and that temptation, that will was marred. And again, this is the idea as far as human autonomy, like how, this is a philosophical discussion, but it's like, how much freedom do you give a being before some sense of violation happens, before rebellion happens, right? And it's even in politics, it's that level of how much freedom do you give a person, right? It's like the ocean. You give a person so much freedom, if the ocean is unsafe, chances are they might get sucked in, die. That's why in certain beaches they have marks and says you can swim, but up to this certain extent, right? What's the implication? Too much freedom will kill you. Okay, but again, anyways, but Satan, there was envy, there was jealousy, that was found in him, and as a result, God sent him. So the passages we have is Isaiah chapter 14, Ezekiel chapter 28. But essentially, when it comes to Satan, this is our fight. This is what we're against. I can't see the enemy, but the enemy is out there. I think a lot of the problems that we have in this world, I think a lot of the problems that we have in history, and I think a lot of the problems we have personally, a lot of it is very demonic. And the problem with that, and this has been my practical issue as far as solutions go, is that how do you know? Right? Like, I think a lot of Christians in our talk, everything's a devil. Certain sects, it's like the devil did that. Oh, the devil did that. Oh, the devil did that. And it's like, I want to acknowledge spiritual warfare, but at the end of the day, sometimes I have to take accountability or responsibility. And maybe the devil, it wasn't the devil. You know, the devil's in one place in one time. Like the devil is in one place in one location. Okay? Demons are in one place in one location. Okay? Satan works in that way, meaning that there's one devil. He can't be in multiple rooms. He doesn't know everything. This is the only description that we have in the Bible. He does have demons. I don't know how many there are. None of us do. We can assume more than a couple thousand because of Legion, right? The pig that was possessed in Mark 5. But that's the way Satan works. But the thing is this: Satan does not have to be on this earth. He could be locked up somewhere, but I think there would still be corruption. Why? Fallen state, flesh, world. We in our fallen state join together and come up with these ideas. And I think Satan, from a different location, incentivizes these things. Right? Remember Mark 5, Ananias and Sapphira, where Peter says, why has Satan filled you with this idea? Right? So I do believe when it comes to the flesh, human nature, the world, that Satan does have a part. As far as how to identify what's Satan, what's not, don't know. Right? And this is my personal, I'll say, wrestle with how to deal with spiritual warfare. Right? So, any thoughts on that point?
Well, I agree with you. I mean, doesn't it say Scripture? We don't fight against flesh and blood, but the demonic, spirits?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it also says something somewhere in Scripture that don't blame God. Don't be blaming God for your desires. These are your desires that tempt you. I don't know where that is.
We're gonna read that in a bit. Exactly. Yeah.
But that's taking responsibility. And it says something about these are your own inner desires. These are don't be blaming everybody else for your own temptation. Do you know where that is? He knows.
No, we're literally gonna read those passages like next. Like literally, I was gonna tell you guys, let's go back. Anyways, yeah, it's in James, but
okay, yeah, it's in James. Wow.
Well, the world, we have the devil, and what does Paul say in verse 3, Ephesians verse 3? He says, among whom we all once lived, what? In the passions of our flesh, carrying out the desires of the body and the mind, and were by nature children of wrath like the rest of mankind. Okay, now he talks about what? So we have three powers that enslave us. We talked about the world in verse 2, beginning of verse 2. We talked about the devil or the enemy, second part of verse 2. And verse 3, it's the flesh. So we have our external enemy, the world, our spiritual enemy, the devil, and our internal enemy, the flesh. Okay, this is our fallen, sinful state inherited by Adam. Okay, this is our state. Okay, when we sin, there's a guilt, but I am not responsible for Adam's guilt. I am responsible for my guilt, my sin. Okay, the nature that I have gotten from Adam incentivizes me. I naturally am drawn what? Away from God. Okay, I'm naturally drawn away from my actual order of how it ought to be. Okay, so remember, before the fall, we were wired to be in fellowship with God. Desires are a good thing. Okay, it's good desires. Okay, the problem with the fall, there was a disordered state that happened within humanity. That now we have a new desire, and that is the things that are away from God. God aligns humanity with proper order. Well, guess what? I'm now wired to run away from those from that structure that God has given us. Okay? Remember, I'm an image bearer. You're an image bearer. We have minds. We have reason that no other being does. Okay? No animals do. Humans have it. Okay? I was going to ask, can someone read, and if some of you guys at the church want to read this, but James 1, verse 13 to 15. James 1, 13 to 15. James 1, 13 to 15. Anyone want to read that?
Let no one say when he is tempted, I am being tempted by God, for God cannot be tempted with evil, and he himself tempts no one. But each person is tempted when he is lured and enticed by his own desire.
All right. That was the verse you were referencing to, right?
Yes.
So think of this, though. I want all of us to look at that passage. James 1, 13 to 15. Okay? Will no one say when he is tempted, I am being tempted by God. For here, God cannot be tempted with evil. He himself tempts no one. Each person is tempted when he is lured and enticed by his own desire. Stop right there. Remember it says, so this is the brother of Christ. This is the brother of our Lord. Let no one say he is tempted. I am being tempted by God. But he says, for God cannot be tempted with evil. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. What about Matthew 4? Matthew 4.
What's Matthew 4?
It's Jesus, who was God, was in the wilderness for 40 days and 40 nights, and he was tempted by the enemy.
But he didn't give in.
Right. You're right. He didn't give in, but he was still tempted. Right? So it says here, for God cannot be tempted with evil. Okay, but in Matthew 4, he was tempted with evil. Right? Jump off this cliff, bow down to me, turn this stone into bread. That's temptation. Right? So we have James 1 that says God cannot be tempted with evil. But we have Matthew 4. No, I think Christ was tempted with evil by the enemy.
Yeah, but it's like God the Father is spirit and like removes from, like he's set apart from everything. So it's like it's like God the Father, he can't be tempted by anything, but like when he became flesh, then he created that scenario to,
Man.
What's that?
He created that. He made him, when the Word became flesh, like, then he was tempted because it was, his son that was tempted, but it wasn't like God the Father.
Yeah,
okay.
Born of woman, still mankind.
Okay, so it seems like what you guys are saying is because God is not human, the Father is human. Because God the Father is not human, he was not tempted. But it seems like what you're saying, Kevin, is Christ was tempted because he was human.
Because the Word became flesh, yeah.
So would you say James 1 should essentially say for God the Father cannot be tempted with evil? Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I like that. I like that. But let's any other
Jesus was born a woman. I mean, we know he was human.
okay.
He had desires. We don't know anything about God, but we know enough about Jesus, right?
Okay.
He was still man. He was still man.
Yeah. Exactly. He's still man. Any other thoughts on this? For God cannot be tempted with evil. Okay.
Well, it's the thing is like the reason why is because he's holy. There's not, it's like he's holy, so he's set apart. Like he made creation. He's outside of time. Like there's no way that something that lesser than him could, put him off track, basically. So when he created the angels, he created everything, created us. We're all beneath him. We're infinitely beneath him. Like there's no one like God. And even though what's his name, Lucifer wanted to be like him in Isaiah 14, where he's like saying, "I will do this and that." It's not even God who puts him in hell. It's like God tells other people to do it, basically. So it's God is the ultimate. Like there's no one.
Yeah.
You can't do anything against God. Like.
Okay. Now.
So it's like, yeah.
Now, think of this though. Okay, the passage. No one can say when he is tempted, I am being tempted by God, for God cannot be tempted with evil. Now watch this. And he himself tempts nobody. Okay, so remember, is that true? God tempts no one? Genesis 12, it says, Genesis 12, it says he tested Abraham. Right? Genesis 22:1. He tested Abraham. So we're making some distinctions here. God does not tempt anyone, but God can test someone. Okay, so the very essence of temptation is to bring you away from God. The very essence of testing is to reveal what's truly inside of you, and ultimately to draw you closer to God. So God can't tempt, but he can test. Okay, now here we continue. Now we're doing like a lesson on James here. But each person, here it is tempted when what? He is lured and enticed what? By his own desire. See that? His own, from within. Then now he gives a progression or a digression as far as where this goes. It starts with desire. Then, when desire is fully conceived, gives birth to sin. The origin of the making of sin from within us. And sin, what is fully grown, what? Brings forth death, or gives birth to death. So essentially, in the context of James chapter 1, the temptation that he's talking about here, where he says, let no one say when he is tempted, I am being tempted by God, is what? Temptation from within. Desires, right? Each person when he is tempted, what? What's the formation? What's the structure of this temptation here in James chapter 1? When each person is what? Tempted, when he is what? Lured and enticed by what? By the enemy? No, by his own desires. So essentially, me and you, humanity, because of our nature, can be tempted from within. Because of our nature. Okay? Jesus, in Matthew chapter 4, Luke chapter 4, was tempted but it wasn't from within. It wasn't from his own desires. It was external. It was from it was someone out. So essentially, this is external temptation versus internal temptation. External temptation is the alcoholic that's been struggling, and someone comes up and says, "Hey George, I got some vodka here for you. Look at this. Would you like some?" Right? I'm tempting you externally. That's the way Satan tempted Christ, externally, right? But the temptation that is mentioned in James chapter 1 is not external. It's what? Internal. So without George saying, hey, I got some vodka here, right? It's the person that, without a person tempting them, they're tempted without the person from within. They're sitting down, and that craving starts to build up. Internal temptation. God does not deal with that temptation at all. Why? He doesn't have those desires. He cannot experience those desires. Those are anti-God desires. We have those desires is because that's our fallen state. You see that? Really quick, because I know you guys are, it's what? 7:45 there. I want to get you out really soon. Really quick. Is it okay, guys, at the church? Like another?
Yeah,
is it?
just a little bit longer.
Okay.
They're going to be coming in any minute.
All right. So James 4, 1-3 says, "What causes quarrels and what causes fights among you? Is it not your passions are at war within you? You desire and do not have, so you murder. You covet and cannot obtain, so you fight and quarrel, and you do not have because you do not ask, and you ask and you ask and do not receive because you ask wrongly to spend it on what? Your passions." So essentially, these desires that we have, these passions that we have, are what we call the flesh. The guy I was talking about, St. Augustine, his book Confessions, emphasizes disordered desires. So there's nothing wrong with disorder, our desires. It's that these desires are misplaced. We love things that are of less value than the greater things. Okay? That's essentially the human struggle. The minute we're born, what? Desire. Screaming, crying, desire. Can't even speak, can't even see, but we desire. Right? And these desires are what are inherently broken. That's the flesh. Okay? When we desire, when these desires are not dealt with, when these desires that we have are not subjugated, they're not put to death, that is a life of inner confusion. What does James say in chapter 1? The double-minded mind is unstable in all his ways. This person will leave trails wherever they go. Problem. In their mind, they're blaming things outside of themselves, but in reality, they're carrying it from within. That's the problem with all of us. This is why Jesus says, you want to be free? Learn how to die. Die to what? This guy right here. Okay? So essentially, because we have to finish now. Wow, we're only on verse 3. I tried to do the whole chapter today. Sorry, guys. What's the chapter? It's like 22 verses. Yeah, there's no way we could do 22 verses today. But essentially, let me end here because we're just coming up upon the hour. The three powers that enslave us. The three powers that enslave us. What? The world, the flesh, and the enemy. There are different angles that enslave us from where we're at. And it's funny because in different traditions, in different upbringings, in different denominations, every denomination will always emphasize one. I don't know if you notice that. They'll always emphasize one. And I kind of have background in some of these traditions, so I know existentially or I know anecdotally. But for instance, the Baptist. You go to a Baptist church and you're raised in a Baptist church, the world. Fundamentalists, the world. The world is going to hell. The world is right. It's right. It's the world. Everything's the world. You go to a Pentecostal church, everything's the devil. Oh, the devil did that. Ooh, right? Satan. Tell the devil, right? The language. It's always Satan, the devil, everything's the devil, right? You go to a Reformed church, Calvinistic church, everything is what? The flesh. The flesh, the flesh, the flesh, the flesh. Die to the flesh. John Owens, the mortification of sin, die to the flesh, right? So it's now, are any of these wrong? No, they're all right. It's just all three of them we have to emphasize. Not just one, all three. Okay? So essentially the three powers that enslave us, the world, the flesh, and the devil. And if you think of it, this is really a chapter of identity. Okay? All of this starts off, if you think of it, fallen identity we're born into. This is how we define ourselves. Fallen state, first, verse 1. Fallen state, fallen identity, fallen life. In that order. Fallen state, that's my nature. Fallen identity I've given myself. Guess what's next? Fallen behavior. You put that in a corporate world, fallen world. Okay? Essentially, this is where we're at. Okay? Let's stop right here because we just finished